person we've got up is Martyn Day SNP MP. Martyn.
Hello, thank you. It's good to be here with you this afternoon, fellow independent supporters. And we've reached a milestone in our independence campaign because we have just passed what will be the last electoral event before our referendum. So that means we all need to work together like we have never done before, with a vision and a passion. It doesn't mean that we all need to agree with one another, not by a long shot, because I think actually 1,000 different voices with different visions of how independence can be is a great message for bringing people over and enhancing the vote that we get at the end of the day. There is, of course, a lot that we do all agree on, and today's theme for this rally being protecting the NHS is one of those themes. And we would all agree that the NHS has done tremendous work for us all during the pandemic and beyond. And I think we should all send our thanks to the people on the front lines that delivered that. So, now, the pandemic, of course, highlights a number of positives to do with Home Rule because it's devolved. It shows that we can govern things sensibly. We can take the next step. But on the other hand, it also shows us the pitfalls of being held back by Westminster power and the stark reality of how decisions are made in England and through the other nations. I'll come on, I'll keep coming. Now, in England, and it's a great example, when the English Health Minister decides they need to spend more money, they go and speak to their friends in the Cabinet, and their pal at the Treasury comes up with the money. And you know where they get it? They get it through your taxes and they borrow it internationally, like every other country does around the world. But when we have an issue in Scotland, we don't get that. We have to wait for the consequential effects of the decisions that they make in England. That is an absolutely ludicrous position. The only thing more ludicrous than that is the fact that we have Labour and Tory politicians trying to tell us that that's a union of equals. Aye, right. Now, it gets even worse than that because we've just had the UK Internal Market Act. And if you haven't heard of this great story to frighten the kids, you need to be frightening the kids and the pensioners with it. Because what it means is the comprehensive health service, publicly funded, free at the point of need, that we so cherish can be undermined by British government ministers with a stroke of a pen opening up our services to what they see as market access. And that's not on. But the risk doesn't stop there either. Because announced in the coming parliamentary session are the twin evils of further austerity and more power grabs. So we're at this nexus point where the Scottish Parliament can go forward with independence, protecting and enhancing the powers that we already have, or it can go backwards. And I make this statement not lightly, not glibly, the days of devolution are numbered. What comes next is up to us, each and every one of us. Indeed. And we will decide that for ourselves here in Scotland, not somebody in London, not know your place unionism. It comes down to democracy. And in Scotland, as we all know, sovereignty rests with the people, and we are the people. We have one job to do over the coming months, and that is to convince the majority of our fellow countrymen and women that independence is the way forward. And when we do that, we are unstoppable, and nothing will hold us back. No wee lousy haircut boy down in London. We're doing it, and we're going to take us there. Woe betide anyone that stands in the way of history. And I've got a wee story to tell you, because independence is normal. It's what every other nation does. My partner's here in the front row, and as you can see from looking at her, she's from India. And a few years ago I was across visiting my in-laws for the first time in Kerala, and we were in Trivandrum, and her great uncle was a very elderly man at the time, sadly now deceased in his late 90s, and he'd played his part in India's fight for freedom. And it's fascinating stories he told me. I won't tell you them all here, I'd be here for the rest of the day. But basically, he played his part as part of the Indian National Congress movement. He leaked information from the British Civil Service to the freedom fighters, kept them ahead of the jail, And then, when they got independence, he joined the communists. And he was part of the first communist victory when they won Kerala in the 1950s. There is a political realignment that happens, but until we get there, we all have to be pushing in the one direction, and that direction is independence. Yeah! And I say, as a warning to our friends in the Scottish Labour Party, you have a limited window to be on the right side of history. Don't make a mistake. Be on the side of the Democrats. Because when Kerala had its first democratic election, and it's famous the world over for being the first place the communists won an electoral mandate. But what's more interesting, and I saw the political leaflets and posters for that first campaign, every victorious candidate, irrespective of which party they represented, featured on the number of times they'd been arrested by the British and how long they'd spent in British prisons. The people that sided with the Brits were wiped away, and the same will happen here, because when you put your faith in a country to go forward, you back the people that have the faith to do it. And the old lad said to me a number of stories, would inspire you all today, but he warned me to beware of what they faced at the time. And it's the same British establishment that we're fighting. They will try and divide us, and they use divide and rule tactics. We must not fall for them. Now, we won't always agree, but when we disagree, let's have a wee chat amongst ourselves and remember who we're fighting. And I'll leave you with the last comment I had with him, the last time I saw him. And I always wanted to ask someone who'd been involved in a freedom fight this question. And I says to him, do you ever have any regrets about independence? And the old boy looked at me, and to my surprise, he said yes. And then added, I didn't do enough. Well, let's make damn sure that every one of us does everything we can, and I pledge that I'll be doing everything I can, day in and day out, until we get there. Hold me to that, and I'll be holding you to the same. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Martyn. A couple of announcements. First of all,